For our final piece on the show today, we have a little bit of time. We're going to cover Industry 4.0. And Industry 4.0 is a phrase that really has become synonymous with a kind of digital transformation that changes almost everything about how manufacturers operate. These organizations use tools such as the Industrial Internet of Things, IIoT, to enable continuous improvement and change and drive the kinds of change and performance gains needed to remain competitive. This places quality and safety leaders at something of a crossroads, however, since digitalization comes with risks as well as opportunities. Companies have traditionally viewed safety and quality as separate functions. The industrial sector has made really great progress in recent years towards integrating safety and quality at the enterprise level, mostly in the form of management systems, but to a lesser extent in terms of teams and processes and information systems, information technology systems too. The widespread availability and accelerating adoption of Industry 4.0 and smart manufacturing technologies creates a fresh opportunity for the quality and safety business functions to work together. But this can cause a fundamental change in how they relate to each other, as well as connect with plant equipment, systems and processes, and people, of course, in the never-ending quest to maximize value. Well, there's a lot there to chew on. I certainly said a lot of syllables, but to help us make sense of it all, we're joined now by Dan Jacob, and Dan is the Research Director and Principal Analyst at L&S Research, and he's also the author of the new ebook, Driving Operational Performance with Digital Innovation, Connecting Risk, Quality, and Safety for Superior Results. So, Dan, welcome back to Quality Digest Live.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for having us back.
Yeah, that was a mouthful. Sorry, I had to kind of squeeze all that in there as we brought you into the show. Yeah, it's really good to have you. You've been on the show before, and your report really was an interesting one. It's very complete and detailed. You always do a great job with your report. So, just to break it down for us, what would you say are the key commonalities that you uncovered between the quality and safety functions as it relates to Industry 4.0, really the big takeaway here on your report?
There's like you said, there's a lot of detail in there, and some very specific guidance. But at a high level, if you look at quality, safety, and risk, those are the three areas we really wanted to look at, the convergence between those three. And there's a reason why we picked them specifically. First of all, if you look at the management systems, there's been some solid work done by ISO to enable the management systems themselves to be connected together, which has lowered the threshold, right? It's made it a lot easier for those different the management systems themselves to be connected. But also, if you look at the challenges that are faced by safety leaders and by quality leaders, they have a lot of shared challenges there. There's initiatives around building a culture of quality or culture of safety. Those are top of mind considerations. They've got similar challenges from a data management perspective. You're generating real-time metrics, looking at having consistent processes across the organization. So those challenges are shared, but really we can share problems, but what's much more effective is when you have those problems, but on the other side, like with safety, quality, and risk, there's also a lot of value, perceived value by operational leaders, so by plant managers, in terms of the importance of quality and safety to their operations. Both of those disciplines really have a direct impact on the output of a plant, the operational effectiveness of the plant itself, and to add really an underlying theme that really emphasizes the importance of quality, safety, and risk today. You're talking about the Industrial Internet of Things and digital transformation. Well, quality and safety are both areas that are highlighted today in the digital transformation initiatives. We see statistically they bubble up to the top in terms of use cases that companies are pursuing today. But also we're seeing in a lot of the digital transformation initiatives we're working with the manufacturing realm on. So lots of activity in this area. Those digital transformation initiatives are in many cases being championed by the board of directors pushed down to the CEO, so the C-suite, the chief operating officer, chief executive officer, CIO, CTO. There's new roles out there like the chief digital officer. That C-suite is actively working on these, and again, prioritizing these initiatives. So it's a very important time, almost like a once-in-a-career opportunity for quality and safety leaders to work together to drive improvement and drive results, both for the digital transformation, but also more broadly.
And Dan, there's an interesting phrase that is found in this ebook. You know, we talked about it before on the show. We've had you on the show before. The digital innovation cycle framework is one that I think is really an interesting idea. So
yeah.
How do manufacturers in particular use that to change and to innovate and to improve?
Yes, I mean, I think there's, we first introduced the digital innovation cycle in our new product introduction research that we performed earlier this year. And it has a lot of importance here for quality and safety leaders. I think your discussion you just had about a growth mindset really applies perfectly to this. If you look at digital transformation in general, it's really about change, but there's also, and you hear a lot of talk about machine learning and roles and advanced industrial analytics, et cetera. That's really important, but there's also a lot of other elements there. You mentioned trust, right? So a culture, having a mutual culture of trust and a culture of change, and having mutual collaboration. So there's a lot of moving pieces that really go into innovation. And if you look at innovation and disruption, they're top of mind today. And for good reason. It's not just about the Ubers and the Airbnbs and all that kind of stuff. There's disruption occurring across entire industry segments right now, where there's maybe some brands that are aging and new competitors that are coming in and changing the marketplace. So lots of impact out there from an innovation perspective. So it's top of mind, again, C-suite level stuff. And when you look at all this, the way we define the digital innovation cycle, it breaks it out into a couple key pieces. So you can recognize both the importance of insights as well as ambiguity around those insights. So again, as a quality or safety leader, take a step back and look at where are insights coming from? Do we have a good grasp on our traditional insights like cost of work quality? Do you measure that on a regular basis? Do you have visibility in terms of the root causes that are driving some of those challenges you might be facing there? You have customer complaints, non-conformances, a lot of those elements. But also new insights that can drive in deeper and give you insights into, for instance, just whether or not a semiconductor wafer failed, but what the conditions were that led up to that wafer failure. Are there segments of the wafer that are still usable, et cetera, et cetera? Are there certain tests that you're running that aren't necessarily delivering high value versus others? What are those decisions you can make now with a data-driven mindset that are reduce some of that ambiguity and increase your insights? But that's one piece. The second piece is actually taking that and adapting it internally, and then making a decision. So you got to be able to pull the trigger, and then finally acting. And there's a lot of frameworks and stuff we have in place, culturally and people and process already in place to help decide and how we act. So how do you go through that process and really drive innovation, both around new products, but also we're seeing a ton of use cases and innovation occurring in operations. And again, with quality and safety's priority today in digital transformation, and I'm not sure that priority is going to remain on the same topics a few years from now. Really today, it's really critical to be engaged as a quality and safety leader to assess where you stand and how to drive innovation.
Yeah, that's a key point. And one thing that we should talk about here, we have a couple minutes left, is weaving risk into this too. You kind of alluded to risk in some of those examples. So ultimately, what did your findings or do your findings show in terms of the key benefits of integrating risk as well as quality and safety in this way?
Yeah, so I mean, risk is really, first of all, it's top of mind in the quality and safety world today, and for good reason. A lot more focus from the management systems on this topic. and because it's such an important part of having a proactive approach, a proactive stance to improving quality and safety. So there's a lot of potential value to be derived from risk, but we still approach it in many cases in a similar fashion to what we've done for the last several decades. It's not that there's been process enhancements, but the underlying data that drives this is still, there's a lot of gaps, right? It kind of goes right back to that digital innovation cycle we talked about, the insights and the ambiguity. There's a lot of ambiguity in terms of our risk, and those who are taking a digital approach, transformed approach around risk, have much deeper insights in terms of what's working, what isn't, and identifying them, quantifying them, mitigating them, validating that the mitigations have worked, et cetera. So there's a lot of opportunity there to become more proactive and take better insights that lead to a more proactive approach.
Well, Dan Jacob, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show. You always provide great insight into the realities of the manufacturing world. I thank you for joining us today. You have an article actually coming up with us in another week or two that the audience out there should be aware of, that's going to further break down the report and your findings a little bit. So we'll be able to publish that for you guys, and the audience will be able to check that out as well.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Dan. You have a great weekend. We'll see you.